General Hospital spoilers reveal that the 2025 Nurses' Ball will witness a storm of lies and secrets being exposed, an event that Port Charles will never forget. This annual charity gala, usually held to raise funds for HIV/AIDS research, will turn into a stage for shocking revelations that will shake the foundations of many powerful families. Beneath the sparkling lights and among the glamorous outfits, masks will fall, revealing faces stripped bare with undeniable truths. Lucy Coe's bold opening performance in her traditional dress will only be the beginning of a night full of upheaval, as a cascade of events will leave attendees stunned and permanently change the power landscape of Port Charles. One of the emerging issues is the escalating tension between opposing factions in the city. The Corinthos family, led by Sonny, is facing pressure from multiple fronts, from Sidwell's rising empire, to the looming threat from Marco, and the secret return of members of the Cassadine family. The Nurses' Ball, with almost the entire town in attendance, will become the meeting point where these conflicts explode. When Sonny enters the event with Mina, a strange silence will sweep over the audience, signaling that everyone knows something big is about to happen. The glances exchanged between Sonny and Sidwell, Drew and Carly, Willow and Mina, all carry underlying tensions and secrets just waiting to burst. The shifting power dynamics in Port Charles will be clearly reflected in seating arrangements and interactions at the event. Former allies now sit apart, while old enemies whisper in dark corners. Particularly, the unexpected closeness between Carly and Mina, two bitter rivals, will spark gossip when they are seen exchanging glances and secret messages throughout the evening. This behavior, completely contrary to their long-standing public animosity, will be one of the first signs that a secret alliance has formed, an alliance with the shared goal of taking down Drew Kane. The drama in the show is shifting from typical romantic entanglements to much more complicated power struggles, with female characters emerging as key players. Willow, once defined by her sweetness and vulnerability, will walk into the Nurses' Ball with a completely different presence, confident, alert, and carrying a carefully devised plan. This transformation will be evident not only in her bolder outfit and new hairstyle but also in how she interacts with those around her. When Drew approaches her with his familiar smile and open arms, Willow's cold stare will be the first sign that she is no longer his easy prey. This sets the stage for one of the night's biggest shocks, the public exposure of Drew Kane. As the evening progresses and performances unfold, Drew will take the stage to announce a large donation from Aurora Media to the charity. It is in that moment, as he speaks about the importance of honesty and integrity, that the large screen behind him will suddenly display video clips and secret emails of Drew, undeniable evidence of insider trading, blackmailing Portia, and even plans to manipulate Willow for financial gain. The auditorium will fall into stunned silence before erupting in murmurs as Drew tries to explain and justify himself. But the biggest shock will not be the contents of the revelations, but the identity of the person behind them. When Drew attempts to accuse Nina of being the culprit, Willow will stand up from her seat, walk to the microphone, and declare that it was she who gathered all the evidence. With a clear and strong voice, Willow will detail how Drew manipulated her, exploiting her trust and emotions to gain access to her children's assets. She will reveal that she has known the truth for weeks and has been secretly working to build a case against him. This moment will mark the public emergence of a new Willow, no longer a victim but a woman who has reclaimed her power. As she finishes her speech and her gaze sweeps across the stunned crowd, she will say one simple but powerful sentence: "I'm not the one being saved anymore. I am the one saving myself." The Nurses' Ball 2025 will end in chaos as Drew is escorted out by security, Portia faces Curtis over her secrets, and Willow stands in the middle of the stage, receiving applause from those who once underestimated her. As attendees leave in shock and disbelief, a new reality will be forming in Port Charles, a reality where manipulators must face the consequences, unexpected alliances are formed, and a new generation of powerful women rises to reshape the town's future in their own way. 2 arrests will be confirmed in a shocking turn of events in Port Charles as Drew and Brennan are simultaneously arrested by the police for crimes they have committed. This scene plays out like a perfectly staged drama, with the police raiding Drew's office at Aurora Media just as he is having an important meeting with investors, while Brennan is arrested at Metro Court during dinner with Carly, who secretly placed a microphone in her jacket to record his final confession. Both powerful men, who once thought they were above the law, are now facing a series of serious charges, ranging from securities fraud, money laundering, blackmail, and even conspiracy to harm others. But the story grows even crazier as investigators uncover a deeper connection between Drew and Brennan, two men who not only know each other but have been co-conspirators in a much bigger plot than anyone could imagine. Files seized from Brennan's home show that the two have secretly collaborated for months, sharing information about Carly and Willow, and planning to take control of both ELQ and Metro Court. There is even evidence suggesting that they hired someone to track and report on Sonny Corinthos's activities, with the ultimate goal of overthrowing his entire empire. This discovery shocks the police and the entire Port Charles community, especially those who trusted and were close to these two men. One of the latest shocks rocking Port Charles is the discovery that both Drew and Brennan are linked to a third mysterious figure, a person referred to in the seized documents only as the operator or the boss. Investigators are trying to determine this person's identity, but currently, they only have a few vague clues and some bank transactions leading to offshore accounts. This makes everything even crazier as Port Charles residents begin to suspect each other, wondering who among them could be this mysterious operator. Theories are spreading throughout town. Could it be Victor Cassadine quietly returning? Cyrus Renaud pulling strings from prison? Or even a completely new character with a personal vendetta against the Corinthos and Quartermain families? The latest shock is revealed as investigators discover that both Drew and Brennan have been victims of a complex blackmail scheme. Data files found on Drew's computer show that both men were being threatened with personal secrets they desperately wanted to keep hidden. For Drew, it was evidence that he had intentionally faked memory loss after returning to Port Charles to avoid responsibility for actions he had taken in the past. For Brennan, it was evidence linking him to the death of his ex-wife, a case the police concluded as an accident, but may not have been. This proves that the story is much more complicated than it first appeared, with layers of deception and manipulation woven together. Nina, Carly, and Willow are in for another shock when they realize that, although they work together to expose Drew and Brennan, they too have been manipulated as part of a much larger plan. During the investigation, they find a series of emails sent from an anonymous account to Drew, instructing him on how to approach and manipulate Willow. Similarly, there are messages sent to Brennan with specific instructions on how to approach Carly. Notably, these emails were sent before Drew and Brennan began their relationships with Willow and Carly, suggesting everything was planned in advance. There are even specific instructions on how to ensure Nina would discover Drew's relationship with Willow, intending to provoke hostility between the two women. These three women, who had prided themselves on overcoming their differences to work together and expose Drew and Brennan, now face the reality that even their cooperation might have been part of a bigger scheme. They are forced to ask themselves, who has been manipulating the manipulators? And more importantly, what is the ultimate goal of all of this? As Port Charles tries to comprehend the full scope of this conspiracy, one thing has become clear: no one is truly safe, and no one knows how many more secrets and lies are waiting to be exposed. Drew and Brennan may have been arrested, but the mysterious veil has not yet been fully lifted, and the operator remains hidden somewhere, perhaps planning their next move in this dangerous game. The truths will be revealed in a series of shocking discoveries in Port Charles as the true identities of several characters are finally brought to light, shaking the foundations of many powerful families and creating new conflicts no one could have foreseen. Joe's identity as the son of Dante and Brooke Lynn has finally been confirmed, after months of speculation and vague clues. This truth is exposed in a dramatic situation at Metro Court when Lulu Spencer, who has just returned to Port Charles after a long recovery, directly confronts Brooke Lynn about her suspicions. The tense confrontation quickly escalates when Lois, unable to bear the burden of the secret any longer, accidentally confirms that Gio is the child Brooke Lynn had been hiding. This moment becomes even more tragic when Gio, who has been working at the bar, accidentally overhears the entire conversation, leaving the young man stunned as he learns that the people he has interacted with for months are his biological parents. Dante's reaction is no less intense when he discovers he has an adult son he never knew about. His anger is directed not only at Brooke Lynn, who hid their son's existence, but also at Lois, who knew the truth but remained silent all this time. The confrontation between Dante and Brooke Lynn quickly becomes the focal point of attention in Port Charles, as Dante publicly threatens to sue Brooke Lynn for child concealment and strip him of his parental rights. Meanwhile, the truth about Marco Rios is also revealed. He is the son of Sidwell and Natalia, a secret kept for many years. This revelation becomes even more explosive when the residents of Port Charles realize that Marco is not only Sidwell's son but also a tool in Sidwell's revenge plan against Sonny. The story begins when Natalia, a former dancer at Sonny's club, once had a brief relationship with the mafia boss during a time when she and Sidwell were temporarily separated. When Marco was born, Sidwell believed the child was Sonny's and nurtured a hatred for him for decades, only to recently discover that Marco was actually his biological son. Brad, who had been quietly investigating Marco for weeks, is the first to uncover the truth through a secret DNA test and shared this information with Lucas in an attempt to protect him. However, ironically, it is Marco who confirms this truth to the public when he confronts Sidwell at an Aurora media press conference, declaring that he has known about their father-son relationship for a long time and had deliberately approached Lucas to gain information from the hospital and the Corinthos family. This is creating one of the latest shocks in Port Charles, the link between these two revelations and the connection between families that seemed unrelated. As the information is dug deeper, it is discovered that Natalia not only had relationships with Sonny and Sidwell but also was once a close friend of Lois Cerullo in the past. In fact, it was Natalia who helped Lois arrange Joe's adoption when Brooke Lynn decided to give up the child without informing Dante. This connection raises the question, are Natalia and Lois victims in this story, or are they the ones pulling the strings behind the scenes? As Port Charles tries to make sense of these complex connections, a new wave of conflict is forming. The Quartermain family is facing the possibility of a new member, Gio, who may have the right to inherit a significant part of the family empire. Dante must balance his anger toward Brooke Lynn with his desire to build a relationship with his newly discovered son. Lulu, who has just returned after a long absence, must face the reality that the man she still has feelings for now has a child with her former enemy. Meanwhile, Marco is caught in the middle of an emotional storm as he faces the truth that his entire life has been built on a lie, that the hatred he nurtured for Sonny, whom he believed abandoned him, was completely unfounded. Sidwell, after discovering that Marco is indeed his biological son, must face the consequences of raising his son with hatred instead of love. As these secrets continue to be exposed and new connections are discovered, Port Charles is bracing for an unprecedented period of upheaval. Alliances are changing, relationships are being tested, and people once seen as enemies are now discovering they have more in common than they thought. And somewhere in the midst of all this chaos, there is an even bigger truth yet to be revealed, a truth that could change the nature of Port Charles and everyone living there forever. Nurses Ball 2025 will also mark the spectacular return of the show's legends, a historic moment that General Hospital fans have been waiting for years. As the stage lights dim after Jocelyn's performance and her heartfelt song dedicated to her family, a moment of silence envelopes the auditorium before the first notes of a familiar melody play. The door at the back of the hall suddenly opens, and Michael Corinthos enters, not in the familiar appearance that viewers have known for years, but with an entirely new energy, confident, mature, and carrying a clear purpose. As new obsessions arise about whether this is the real Michael or a new actor taking on the role, the scene becomes even more shocking when two other figures appear behind him. Morgan, who was thought to have died in a bombing years ago, steps out of the shadows with a slight smile on his face, and beside him is Spencer, with a completely different appearance, no longer the impulsive young man but a man with a sharp and determined gaze. These three young men, representing three of the most powerful families in Port Charles, the Corinthos, Quartermain, and Cassadine families, stand together in an alliance no one could have anticipated. Their simultaneous appearance throws the auditorium into complete chaos. Carly and Sonny jump up from their seats, unable to believe their eyes at the sight of Morgan alive. Laura bursts into tears as she recognizes Spencer, while Nicholas turns pale at the presence of his grandson. Drew, sitting next to Willow, freezes when his eyes meet Michael's cold stare. None of these three men say a word as they walk toward the stage. Michael, looking more mature and with a gaze hardened by much pain, leads the group. Morgan, with faint scars on one side of his face showing what he's been through since the bombing, walks with clear alertness. Spencer, taller and more muscular than the last time anyone saw him, moves with the grace and confidence of someone completely comfortable with his power. When they reach the stage, Michael is the first to approach the microphone. "We're back," he says simply, his voice deeper and more resonant than anyone remembers. "And Port Charles will never be the same again." Michael, Morgan, and Spencer are ready to make a new shock to the show's storylines when they reveal that their return is not coincidental, but the result of a plan that has been carefully prepared for years. Morgan explains that he didn't die in the bombing but was saved by a secret group, treated, and recovered in an anonymous facility. Spencer admits that he has known Morgan was alive for a long time and secretly met with him over the years. And Michael, perhaps the most shocking revelation, admits that he pretended to accept Willow's relationship with Drew while secretly gathering evidence of Drew's illegal activities at Aurora Media. The real shock comes when these three young men reveal their true purpose, to form a new alliance between the three most powerful families in Port Charles, not to dominate the town like past generations, but to end the cycle of violence and revenge that has defined Port Charles for decades. Morgan, who has lost everything and been reborn, Spencer, who has suffered betrayal from his own father, and Michael, who has witnessed the cost of power and hatred, have vowed together to create a new path for Port Charles. "We've seen what power, greed, and hatred have done to this town, to our families," Spencer says, his voice resonating across the silent auditorium. "We've lost too much, and we refuse to let the next generations go through the same thing." This revelation creates a wave of emotion in the auditorium. Carly, with tears streaming down her face, looks at her son with surprise and pride. Sonny, the man who rarely shows emotions, stands with red eyes as he looks at Morgan, the son he has mourned for many years. Laura moves toward the stage, unable to contain her desire to embrace her grandson. But not everyone is happy about this return. Drew, with a tense face, begins to move toward the exit, only to find that the escape route has been blocked by two men in suits. Clearly part of Michael's plan. Nicholas, realizing that Spencer's return may mean his crimes will be exposed, also tries to leave but finds himself being closely watched. As Nurses Ball 2025 ends in chaos and emotion, a new era is beginning in Port Charles. The return of Michael, Morgan, and Spencer is not just about family reunions or settling old scores, but about reshaping the future of this town. With a combination of Quartermain's intelligence, Corintho's decisiveness, and Cassidy's sophistication, these three young men represent a new generation, a generation that has seen the consequences of their father's mistakes and is determined to create a different path. As the audience leaves the auditorium, big questions remain. How did Morgan survive the bombing? Who helped him over the years? Why did Spencer ally with the son of his family's enemy? And perhaps most importantly, is Port Charles truly ready for the changes these three men are bringing? Nurses Ball 2025 will be remembered not only for the incredible performances or shocking revelations but because it marks the beginning of a new chapter in Port Charles's history, a chapter written by young men who have endured enough pain to know that there must be a better way.